a couple of the fast topics, and then we are going to catch up on super chats. So let's go here. So we got the first one. This is the most interesting one that I saw so far today. Assassin's Creed Shadows. Apparently, there's been a data mine reveal that says that there is a multiplayer mode for this game. Now, I find this to be extremely interesting. The reason why is because, number one, that would be quite ridiculous, especially for an Assassin's Creed game. Number two, it's at the point now where it's like, if there is going to be a multiplayer mode, why would you not input it into the game at the beginning, right? I don't understand or see why they would want to do this as a DLC, because that kind of doesn't make any sense, right? I feel like if you're going to have a multiplayer mode, you would want to do it when the game is at its most hype, which is at the beginning and at its launch. Why would you do it after the fact? It's just kind of strange. But it says it appears that the Assassin's Creed Shadows developers had a multiplayer mode in the works, as mentions of it were found in DATAMINE files. According to a post on X, Game Modder Slider RV2, Assassin's Creed Shadows files feature several mentions of a multiplayer mode. The modder provides 3 instances where either multiplayer or elements of a multiplayer mode were mentioned in the DATAMINE files. Moreover, the developers were also seemingly working on a PvP mode, as revealed by mentions of red PvP maps and red PvP gym in the files. For those wondering, codename Red was the internal name for Assassin's Creed Shadows. So they were going to have some sort of a PvP map where you can face off against other Black Samurais, which would actually be pretty hilarious. Chances are what this was initial early files in the game that never made it to fruition. Chances are they probably had an idea to turn this into some sort of multiplayer live service element hybrid of a video game, not just a regular Assassin's Creed game like it is now. They probably had that in mind, and they ended up turning back and saying, you know what, well, we're not going to do that, and ended up just releasing what Assassin's Creed Shadows is as it is today. But can you imagine multiplayer PvP matches in Assassin's Creed Shadows? Yasuke on Yasuke crime? Every samurai, they probably would have gave you a character creator, most likely, because I can't imagine many people enjoying PvP if you could only play as 2 characters, unless they were going to introduce other characters as playable characters in the game. Some NPCs maybe will, you can use them in the PvP match, but it would have been hilarious to see all of this go down. Insider Gaming exclusive reported in October 2024 that Assassin's Creed Shadows has a multiplayer co-op mode in development, which will be released post-launch. The multiplayer aspect of the title, codenamed League, did not have a release date as the main game was postponed at that time. So if they are going to release this post-launch, that's stupid. That is honestly stupid in my opinion. Because as a multiplayer aspect in a video game, you are going to want it to be at the prime of the video game. Almost nobody is playing Shadows now. Shadows has a couple of thousand people playing it every day now at this point, and that's basically it. The numbers have dropped dramatically. People have either beaten the game, moved on. So who is going to be playing multiplayer in Assassin's Creed Shadows? How is that going to get people to want to come back? I don't understand. Hypnotic, I assume it would have just been like other Assassin's Creed multiplayer where you are just random people and it was class-based. Fair enough. Fair enough. You might be right. Obviously, I don't think they'll let you fight as Yasuke, but it would be hilarious if you could. I would love to see a Yasuke on Yasuke fight going on. Moreover, what this multiplayer mode entails was not confirmed. It is worth noting that this co-op mode is not related to Assassin's Creed Invictus, which is set to be the next full-fledged multiplayer game of the franchise. The last time we saw multiplayer in the Assassin's Creed franchise was in 2013 and 14. In 2013, we received Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which was the last title to feature PvP multiplayer. AC Unity was the last game to feature multiplayer co-op missions. I think that they should definitely have put at least co-op into the game. That probably would have let the game last a little bit longer in the life cycle. But I think at this point, I don't really... Oh my God, bro. Picasso said you raid Target stores. Oh my god. That is great. That is great. I think that co-op definitely would have been something they should have put in this game at release. It would have extended the life cycle of the game longer than it would already is. But at this point, people have moved on from Shadows, man. The only people who haven't moved on from Shadows are those that are still trying to convince you that it's totally the #1 best-selling game in the country and everybody knows it except for you, kind of a thing. That's the only people still talking about Shadows in any meaningful way. Aside from that, everybody's pretty much moved on. So whether or not this game gets multiplayer or co-op means nothing to me. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I finished it. I've moved on. I uninstalled it. I did my review, and that's that. But at this point, I don't really know what it's going to do for the game. I really don't. I don't see how it's going to help the game at all. But I guess we'll find out in the future if it ever does come out. Or maybe it's just files that never made it. Who knows? All right, let's get to the next topic. So Sony's Lost Soul Aside release date has been delayed. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this video game. This game looked really good. It was showcased on the Game Awards, and this is the game that I believe was made by one developer, which ridiculous, but whatever. Lost Soul Aside looks to fill a big hole in a AAA hack and slash market. Published by Sony, it looks unbelievable, but Alta Zero Games has announced that the action title isn't quite ready for its planned release date. I feel like classic hack and slash games are dying breed. We once had a competitive scene with Devil May Cry, the OG God of War games, Digigaiden, Bayonetta, and Omnimusha regularly duking it out. In 2025, the scene resembles a western with a loose tumbleweed ambling across the screen in a cliched fashion. Developers are fixated on Souls-like action and prioritizing parrying and blocking over stylish combos and glitzy action. Lost Soul Aside feels like a spiritual successor to the genre, but you're gonna have to wait a bit longer for it. Apparently, they have pushed back the game to August of 2025 from May of 2025. But I believe that's when it was initially supposed to come out. Yeah, May 30th. It was supposed to come out May 30th. It was only a few months ago that we had the newest gameplay trailer. But they said CEO Yang Bing has delivered some bad news and says we remain committed to delivering a high-quality game experience to match the standards Alta Zero Games have set for ourselves. We are going to take some additional time to polish the game. Lost Soul Aside will now release on August 29th of 2025. So, unfortunate, like I said, for the people who were interested in it, I was one of them. I thought it looked really good, aside from the main protagonist looking a little bit too close to Final Fantasy 15. But aside from that, I thought it looked pretty good, and we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. If you are a Sonic fan, Words of Paradise is probably not in here, but if you are a Sonic fan, unfortunately for you, Sonic Rumble has been delayed yet again by Sega. Sega and developer Rovio have announced that Sonic Rumble has been delayed again. The delay comes after its global launch was originally pushed to spring of 2025 back in February. In the statement released on social media, Sega says that the decision to delay the game's global launch was difficult, but ultimately the right one to make. We know this news may be disappointing, and it wasn't a decision we made lightly. Sega said in the statement, we believe taking the extra time is the right choice for the future of Sonic Rumble. We don't have any new release date to share yet, but as soon as we get closer, we'll update you through our social media and community channels. So, unfortunately for you guys who were looking forward to that, that's going to be delayed also. Quick little tidbit. If you guys have PlayStation Plus, they got some bangers on here. You got Ark Survival Ascendant, you got Balatro, but the main one that I recommend you go download has to be Bolt Gun. Bolt Gun is available right now on PS Plus for free. You know, free. Bolt Gun is an amazing game. It is so much fun. If you haven't played Bolt Gun, please go download it on PlayStation. It is free right now. I highly implore you do it. It is that good. All right, last but not least, is this the last one? Let me see. Yes. Yeah, because I'm not going to show the Doom stuff. Doom 4. You know what I'll do here? I'm going to take... This is a topic I was going to cover, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not going to cover it. Because I don't want to get copyrighted. So what I'm going to do is link this article in the chat. If you are a Doom fan and you're curious, there has been concept art and footage that has been leaked online from the Doom 4 canceled project. If you guys want to go see it, you can click the link in the chat right now and check it out for yourself. But I can't show it on screen because I feel like Last time I did that with Ubisoft, those motherfuckers copyrighted me, and I'm not even going to bother. But at least you could check it out in the chat. Go watch it yourselves if you're curious about that. Here we go. So, producer of canceled XDefiant calls out Call of Duty's FOMO marketing. Now, this shit made me laugh. The reason why it made me laugh is because of the irony of it, right? So this is the producer of the canceled XDefiant calling out Call of Duty's FOMO marketing. This person does not like the way that Call of Duty has been marketing itself. And to be fair, not a lot of people do, and myself included. But I just think it's hilarious that the guy who has a failed video game because he just didn't market it that well and he didn't actually do a good enough job with the game itself is calling out the more successful franchise. But that doesn't mean he's necessarily wrong. I just think it's ironic. That's all. It says XDefiant may not be around much longer to compete for the top spot. Was it ever competing outside of the initial release? I don't think it ever competed for the top spot in multiplayer first-person shooter market, but that isn't stopping the game's executive producer from taking shots at Call of Duty and its decision makers. In a reply to a fan lamenting over the fact that XDefiant will soon be no more, executive producer Mark Rubin took a shot at the marketing behind Call of Duty and other games. A lot of games, Call of Duty included, just focuses on how to make the most money possible out of the player base. Rubin said they rely heavily on FOMO marketing and EOMM matches. Rubin then added that he felt games like Call of Duty used to focus more on the quality of the game as the way to get people to play it, including making it more player-centric, with fewer engagement-focused tactics and higher quality experiences. In other words, your game should have a higher player count because it's good and people want to play it, rather than people playing it because the game has a $250 million marketing budget. Everything just said is very simplified, as it would take too long to really go into it. I don't know, bro. That sounds like a little bit of cope to me. It sounds like that the guy who tried to go up against Call of Duty, it sounds like he thinks that XDefiant was the better game, but he feels like he got pushed out of it because of the marketing. Just seems to be the case. He seems not too happy with that kind of notion. But here's the thing. You know, XDefiant had a lot of players at the start. You guys know that XDefiant reached 20 million players, which is insane. XDefiant reached 20 million players close to its release time, and it ended up dying to about 20,000 players after a few months. That's how big of a drop XDefiant had. That's how much they fumbled the ball when they had it, because 20 million players is nothing. That's not a joke. That's a huge amount of players. Now, granted, you know, their business model allowed for that. They weren't paid to play. They were free to play, I believe. But even regardless, all that being said, that's still a lot of fucking players, and they could have did a lot with that. But what ended up happening was the game just wasn't that great. And truth be told, from what I understand, one of the biggest complaints about the game was it having hit detection problems. It had hit detection problems, which is a huge problem if you're trying to sell a first-person shooter. Like, why would somebody want to invest in a first-person shooter if when they aim for the head, they hit your shoulder? You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a problem. So, anyway, XDefiant had a lot of issues. So then he then wrapped up his comments by saying studios need to be more like Larian, less like Activision, while clarifying that there are some great people at Activision and their studios, but he believes that they turned into something they weren't and haven't been able to escape. Bro, I don't know about anybody else, but I have never once ever thought of Activision as a for the gamer kind of company. I know that for a fact because when Blizzard was announced to be merging with Activision, I remember saying so many years ago that Blizzard is fucking dead, bro. I said for so many years that the moment Blizzard merged with Activision, that was going to be the death of that beloved company that I loved so much so many years ago, that put out so many good games. So I never once thought of Activision as being a for the gamer kind of company. So I don't understand what he means by saying that they changed into something that they weren't and now they can't escape, because I feel like they've always been this way. What up, Kata? What up, Carlin? How you doing? That's how I feel, and you know, regardless. So RIP to XDefiant is gonna die pretty much within a few weeks, and that's gonna be the end of it. And that's basically it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's everything. I'm gonna make sure